Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Security Bit. In this episode, my AI friend will walk you through MCP security best practices and we will refer official Anthropic documentation.
All right, welcome. Today we're jumping right into the digital arena for this high-stakes game of cat and mouse. You've got a clever hacker on one side trying to find all the cracks in a brand new protocol, and on the other, a diligent defender whose job it is to build the walls to keep them out. We're going to break down the security playbook for something called the Model Context Protocol.
We'll get to know the protocol itself. Then, we're going to dive into three key attacks. We're talking the confused deputy, token pass-through, and session hijacking. And for each one, we'll lay out the defender's winning countermove. Let's get into it. First up, let's really set the stage. Before you can defend the castle, you gotta understand the blueprint, right? So what exactly is this Model Context Protocol, and why is it so incredibly important to protect?
Okay, think of MCP as a kind of universal translator. It's a standard language that lets all sorts of different apps and AI models have a real conversation with each other. But, just like any important conversation, especially one that's handling sensitive data, you need clear rules. You need security to stop people from listening in or, worse, jumping in with bad intentions. And that's exactly where our playbook comes in.
Now for our first scenario. In this play, the attacker doesn't bother with a battering ram to smash down the front door. Nope. Instead, they cleverly trick the system's own trusted doorman into just letting them right in. This is what we call the confused deputy attack. So, the most important thing to get here is this. The system isn't technically broken or hacked in the usual way. It has all the right permissions. The real vulnerability is that it can be manipulated. It can be confused into using its legitimate power for the attacker's goals. And the whole time, it has no idea it's being played.
The strategy here is, well, it's brilliant and really sneaky. It all starts with a user giving consent, just like you do every day. Later on, an attacker sends them a malicious link. Now, because the browser has an old consent cookie, the server makes a fatal mistake. It sees the cookie and skips asking for new permission. That's the crack in the armor. The authorization code is then sent straight to the attacker's server, basically handing them the keys to the kingdom.
And the defense? It's an absolute rule. No exceptions. No assumptions, no shortcuts. The server has to be programmed to essentially have a short-term memory. Every single time a new client asks for access, that server must stop and get explicit, fresh permission from the user. It is the only way to break the confused deputy's spell.
All right, on to our second attack. This one is less about being tricky and more about a server just being way too trusting. It's an anti-pattern called token pass-through, where a server accepts credentials that were never ever meant for it in the first place.
Here's a really simple way to think about it. Imagine a security guard at, say, Building A. Someone walks up and hands them a key, but that key was actually made for Building B across the street. A guard who's too trusting might just take it and let them in. That's exactly what's happening here digitally. The server is failing to do the one simple check. Was this digital key, this token, actually issued for me? And the fallout from this one simple mistake is huge. It lets attackers waltz right past critical security measures. It completely messes up the audit logs, making it impossible to figure out who did what, which is an absolute nightmare for any security team. It just fundamentally breaks the trust between different parts of your system, and it can even set off a chain reaction where one compromised service makes the others fall like dominoes.
So, the defender's move here is an ironclad, non-negotiable rule. The server's logic has to be absolute. It has to ask, was this token explicitly created for me and only me? If that answer is anything but a loud, clear yes, it gets rejected. End of story. No exceptions. Our final attack is a classic for a reason. It's devastatingly effective. This is session hijacking. It's a pretty straightforward case of digital identity theft, where an attacker steals a user's temporary pass, their session ID, and just starts impersonating them.
Now, there are two main flavors of this attack. You've got prompt injection, which is kind of like secretly passing a note to someone in the middle of their conversation, making them say or do something they didn't mean to. Then there's impersonation, which is what we're going to focus on. That one's way more direct. The attacker steals the user's ID badge and just walks right into the building pretending to be them.
The impersonation attack is chillingly simple. A real user logs in, and they get a session ID to manage their connection. But if an attacker gets their hands on that ID, maybe through malware or an unsecured Wi-Fi network, they can just present it to the server. The server sees a valid ID, thinks everything's fine, and is completely fooled.
Just like that, the attacker gets full access. A strong defense here isn't just one single wall. It's more like a whole grid of tactics all working together. First, the server has to verify every single request that comes in. Second, the session IDs themselves need to be super secure, long, random, and basically impossible to guess. And finally, the session ID should be digitally stapled to the user's specific information. That way, even if the ID gets stolen, it's useless to anyone else.
All right, so we've seen the hacker's moves and we've seen the defender's counters. Now it's time to pull it all together into a clear, actionable playbook that you can actually use to build stronger, more secure systems.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? If you're going to remember anything, remember these three things. The three core principles. Number one, always get explicit consent. Never just assume you have permission from a past visit. Number two, validate every single token. You gotta be skeptical and make sure that token was made specifically for your service. And number three, secure and bind those user sessions. I mean, you have to treat session IDs like they're the literal keys to the kingdom, because, well, they are. And that really leaves us with this final thought. Protocols like MCP, they're the threads weaving our entire digital world together, and all of it is built on a foundation of trust. So it's our job as the people who build and use these systems to make sure that trust is never just assumed. It has to be earned, it has to be verified, and it has to be defended at every single step. Thanks for tuning in.